Hey Summoners, welcome to another episode of OP Pick or Ban. We're finally seeing some balance changes in this preseason, so we expect a ton of shifts this time around. It's been a while since we threw one of these at you guys, and we're glad to be back. Make sure to stay tuned to find out which picks are set to dominate the Rift on patch 9.24. We're covering champions you have to pick or ban in every role. For our question of the day, what are your thoughts on the new Omnistone Keystone? I think the idea behind it isn't bad as it makes sense on paper, but it still needs to be fine-tuned, and I really hope that Riot can make it work. Are you guys getting ganked in your own lane? Constantly demolished? Don't worry, we got you covered. ProGuides is the #1 proven way to quickly help you level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides is where you'll find them. Even players like Nightblue, Bunny Fufu, and Loco Doco support ProGuides. So what are you waiting for? Click the link to start improving right now. Alright, let's get started with the video. As always, let's kick it off with the top lane. Our first pick is none other than the Dunk Master himself, Darius. The Conqueror changes have been great for him, as he's really happy with all the bonus AD and insane healing it provides for him. Especially against squishier champions, Darius has been finding even more success as a result of the extra power he's found. The fact that his abilities help him stack up Conqueror means that he has no trouble maxing it out during any trade. Naturally, he'll want to gather 5 stacks for his passive beforehand anyway, and the increased AD from Conqueror makes for an even stronger execute than before with his ultimate. Another reason I think Darius is so strong right now is because both Zizirot Portal and Spear of Shojin have been removed from the game. Spear of Shojin was a huge power spike for many other bruisers against Darius, as it'd leave him unable to fight back. Ironically, he'd usually be the one getting dunked once his opponent finished one. It's a more straightforward brawl up in the top lane now, and that's good news for Darius. He does well against nearly every other popular top laner right now. Even champions that are supposed to counter him are barely making a dent in his win rate, illustrating that he's an overall powerful pick. His already high ban rate conveys how much the player base hates playing versus this guy, and we'll definitely say it's one of those times where it's okay to be mainstream. Our next top lane pick was the most popular as well as the highest win rate top laner last patch, Mordekaiser. I'm optimistic about both these top lane picks because of the nerfs to Conqueror this patch as well. While the duration of the stacks has been decreased, ranged champions won't be able to abuse it nearly as well. It's a small trade-off, but both of these champions prefer to take longer all-in fights anyway, so the nerfs are rather situational. In many circumstances, they honestly wouldn't leave a dent in Mordekaiser's 53% win rate. Think of Mordekaiser as an AP Darius minus the dunks. He's this colossal juggernaut who you don't want to fight. He does very well in all-ins, and once he finishes Rylays, there's basically no way you're going to get away from him if he manages to land a Z. Once you get trapped in his ultimate, you're practically doomed without a Quicksilver Sash. The increased adaptive force from Conqueror has benefited Mordekaiser significantly, since it scales more favorably when converted into AP instead of AD. While his ban rate was significantly lower than Darius's, he held the highest pay rate last patch, showing that his win rate isn't inflated. You can definitely make the argument that Darius would have been the most popular if he wasn't banned in 31% of solo queue games though. If you're not convinced by either of these top lane picks, our analysts also want to note that Kleptomancy has been removed. This keystone made it difficult for juggernauts like these to truly dominate, since they were basically free sacks of gold against nearly any ranged champion. With it gone, they're able to freely crush their opponents. Make sure to check out these top lane builds one more time as we move on to the jungle. By far the most popular jungler at the moment is Lee Sin. He stacks up Conqueror extremely quickly, and as a jungler rather than a laner, the nerfs to the rune don't mean anything. When Lee Sin initiates a fight, his Q and E will grant him 6 Conqueror stacks, meaning he only needs to fit in 2 stacks before maxing it out. The easy access to so much bonus AD means that Lee Sin is in an even better place than last season. Fun fact, Lee Sin sat just below 800,000 games played last patch. The next most popular pick, Echo, at just below 300,000. Aside from his absurd pick rate, Lee Sin has been seeing a surprising number of bans as well, and we definitely think he's a viable ban at the moment. Is the change to 1 rune really enough to make one champion a dominant pick? We're leaning towards a yes. Lee Sin is a jungler who stays relatively healthy, can play aggressively, and snowballs extremely hard. He has no problem soloing either Rift Herald or Dragon, so you know that there should be no issue securing those objectives. Obviously, the hardest part of playing Lee Sin is the mechanical aspect of it. It's preseason, guys, so take advantage of it and put in your time on him. You'd rather fail now than later when your games matter so much more. Another pick that's continuing to crush the jungle is Warwick. Since beginning of the preseason, he's been the talk of the town. Notably, Warwick has one of the easiest times securing objectives, and his powerful dueling has allowed him to shake things up in the jungle. With so many changes hitting the jungle this season, somebody is bound to come out as king, and this time, it's Warwick. He's one of the few junglers who can start Rejuvenation Bead instead of potions, meaning he can finish Tiamat more quickly than basically any other jungler. Once he finishes that, he has no problem keeping up with the reduced spawn timers, while simultaneously providing a bunch of pressure for his team. He did receive some buffs a few patches ago, and he's had a positive trend since then. What I really like about Warwick is how quickly he traverses the map, and how effectively he fills his role. When you run Celerity and Water Walking and also build a Dead Man's Plate, it's almost as if you have permanent Predator boots. Right now, Warwick is an extremely powerful skirmisher who can take advantage of disjointed or smaller fights. With how disorganized solo queue is, I'm confident that any player can take advantage of Warwick's strengths. Alright, that's enough about the jungle. We got those builds up on the screen one more time for you guys though. Let's move on to the mid lane next. Surprisingly enough, our first pick in the mid lane is actually Kassadin. Okay, some of you guys might not be surprised, but with all the hype around the new lethality items, it's hard to believe someone who usually suffers heavily against AD champions is finding so much success. Ironically, the only physical damage champion that held a positive win rate against him last patch was Aatrox. That's more of a result of the Conqueror changes than lethality changes as well. The changes to Presence of Mind have been a great help for him, and it's honestly the only significant change he's seen in the last couple patches. Being able to restore 20% of his missing mana upon takedowns and also ending up with 500 more maximum mana than before is definitely nothing to scoff at. While it's not as OP as the old Presence of Mind that briefly allowed him to have no mana costs, it's definitely an improvement from the last iteration as he didn't benefit from ultimate cooldown reduction when his Riftwalk's cooldown was already non-existent. I think the issue right now is that it's too hard to shut him out. Although Kassadin may find difficulty taking lane priority against physical damage champions, he can gradually find it against many that deal magic damage. His late game is even stronger than before because of the new Presence of Mind, and most of us already know how oppressive it was before. For those of you that didn't, Kassadin is, for lack of better words, insane. He can jump on a 1-second cooldown after level 16, is tankier than most other divers, and has one of the highest damage outputs in the entire game. There's no surviving a fed Kassadin if you're playing a squishy champion, and that's something I can personally attest to a little too well. Next up is Diana. She saw a lot of success last patch, but we think with all the changes that have come to surface, she's going to be even better. Her win rate last patch was 52%, and while she might need some fine-tuning, she's going to have a lot more early game pressure than before. If you don't know, her R and E have basically been switched. Diana can now dash to her opponents before hitting level 6, and her ultimate is now what her old E was. However, it deals damage now. Diana can now jump in for some insane wombo combos. She's like a moving Oriana ball, as she can jump in and nuke enemies in a large area now. Honestly, it felt like Diana wasn't really a champion before level 6 before. While she could shield herself, Q her enemy, and try to farm, there was really nothing she could do if her opponent stayed out of melee range. The fact that she can dash to her enemies now makes her similar to Aurelia, a champion who can chase down her foes and punish them for any mistakes they make. Overall, she's still going to be a snowball-y monster in the mid lane, but can now dictate her own lane much more effectively. Peep those mid lane builds on the screen, guys, one last time. Let's move on to the bottom lane now. Our first bot laner is one we mentioned in our last video as well. I honestly think Caitlyn is broken, not only because of her statistics, but because her weaknesses are so hard to take advantage of. She doesn't have a hard time staying out of danger because of her long range and abundance of self-peel. In a way, this is balanced out by the fact that she's definitely one of the harder marksmen in the game. As our analysts predicted last patch, she's opting for an energized build now, taking advantage of Storm Razor, Rapid Fire Cannon, and sometimes even Static Shift. Next up is Heimerdinger. Some of you know that there was a trending Conqueror build on him last patch, but those dreams are crushed with the nerfs this patch. Nevertheless, running Comet and making your enemies miserable in the lane phase is still a totally viable option. The way this is balanced is that no one will want to be your friend. Heimerdinger pushes, pokes, and doesn't allow his enemies to play the game. With the increased priority on Dragon, it should come as no surprise that both Caitlyn and Heimerdinger have been killing it in the bottom lane. Once you finish Lost Chapter, your mana problems are non-existent, and you can continue to keep your lane pushed in. From there, look for free missile poke on your enemies. Whenever enemies try to all-in Heimerdinger, it's extremely difficult because of his upgraded turret. Overall, Heimerdinger provides way too much lane pressure, and there aren't very many answers to him down bottom. While he's a new addition to Summoner's Rift, our analysts highly speculate that Aphelios will be an extremely popular pick. He is a complex kit, however, so take any early statistics that pop up with a grain of salt. Harder champions come with growing pains, so it wouldn't be unheard of if he had abysmal win rates for at least a patch or two. One of Aphelios' greatest strengths is his insane team fighting. He has a lot of versatility because of his weapon arsenal. As a result of it, he fits into nearly any team composition. Whatever his team needs, he can make it work. It's also worth noting that his ultimate deals insane AoE damage and can turn around fights altogether. Just make sure to note that his level 1 is extremely weak if you end up picking him. Once you hit level 2, it's smooth sailing and simply a matter of how comfortable you get on him. If you want to learn more about him, check out the video guide we recently posted, the only Aphelios guide you'll ever need. Hear those marksman builds one more time as we move on to supports to wrap it all up. Kicking off supports is another familiar face, or maybe helmet is a better way to put it. Nautilus is a champion we've mentioned so many times in this series, including the last episode. His statistics last patch continue to show how oppressive and powerful he can be in the hands of players who take advantage of his immense damage and crowd control. Aside from Senna, who received nerfs this patch, Nautilus was arguably the best support last patch, at least in regard to his statistics. The changes to Aftershock allow him to play aggressively much more often, and his opponents are not happy about that. If you want to win every single ranked game ever, there's only one choice, and that choice is Janna. Yes, that's a throwback for all you old school players. Now let's get on with the serious talk. Janna was the highest win rate support last patch because she gets the job done. She's basically every support stereotype put into a champion because she has 4 abilities that provide utility: a knockup, a slow, a shield, and an AoE knockback heal. While she's simple, this also means that it's not hard to make the most out of her strengths. I personally don't think she's easy, but at the same time, she is in no way, shape, or form the most difficult one either. Janna provides a ton of lane pressure because she can constantly poke her enemies and disengage anytime her enemies try to put a stop to her shenanigans. Regardless of how she does in lane, Janna is always useful. Yes, even when she gets one-shot by the enemy mid laner. At the very least, she managed to force them to waste their abilities on her. In cases where she isn't the primary target though, Janna has so many opportunities to pop off with her abilities. She can follow up on anything her team does simply by existing. If her team is going all in for a dive, she can stand by one of her more vulnerable carries to make sure things don't go awry. Hear those support builds one more time for you guys as we wrap up the video. That concludes this episode of OP Pick or Ban. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you want to see more content like this or a ton of helpful content related to gameplay, check out our YouTube channel as well as ProGuides.com, where we teamed up with professional players to design the best content to help you improve. Good luck out there on the Rift, and we hope to see you all next time.